Hi again, and today we're going to be talking about building a custom brush, and not just the custom brush itself. We've talked about that many times before, but pretty much creating a media from start to finish. And a media is basically a custom brush plus the various settings that you have with it. So anytime you open up something from the Browse Media folder, these are basically just medias that have been created inside of Howler. There's nothing really magical about them other than the fact that yes, we can create these on the fly in Howler and save them out as a media, and that becomes something you can work with in the future. And there are a lot of these, like for example these tree parts, stalks and branches and all these things like this, and we can just load it up and start painting with it. And that's basically what we're going to do today, is build one of these from scratch. So let's take a look at what that looks like just by itself. Let's load up a couple other ones just to see what they do. Very simple. You can give them different colors like that, and you can of course change the settings, make more of them, less of them, change the angle, all that stuff. Let's see, use the brush angle as an input, that kind of thing. So that's just basically what we're going to do today. So let's start with a shape, a basic shape. I'm going to use a media that I'm pretty happy with for creating these things. It's in the art styles category, called Sumi One. Right there, it looks kind of like a pine cone or something. I don't know, I'm not sure why, but and it just looks like that when you draw with it. It's very nice, makes a nice brush stroke. And I'm using a Wacom tablet, Intuos, I believe, and just showing that it does some pressure support there. If you're not on a tablet, there is a way you can get this with the post adjustment by editing an envelope to create sort of a brush shape or brush size change over the course of a brush. But I'm not going to be using that today. I'm just going to use the pressure like that, and we're going to start on white and paint black on white, and we can reverse that later, because we're first going to create an alpha channel, and alpha is usually white on black instead of black on white. But let's just start with the shape. Say some kind of, well, I've done this before. It's sort of a Sierpinski, or what's his name, triangle. I forget what that's called, but it's just sort of this shape like this. There might be a little, I don't know, little flowers and some things like that coming off of there. And I might make another one of these down here. And I might make another one over here. And these are just like little flower type things or whatever. Change the size a little bit. I'll start making some little stems and things that come off of this. This kind of thing like this. That kind of thing. Alright, so we basically created this first brush stamp. I might use that just as is, or we might create several of these. So let's go ahead and create several of these. I'll store a copy of it, and we'll come back to that later. And I'll make something a little bit different. I'll reverse it this time. I'll draw it this way instead. These are just, like I said, like little flowers or something. So, and it's good to go out in nature and just look for various shapes and things. Not sure what just happened there, but I think I'm pressing a key by mistake on the keyboard here. I have my Wacom set on top of my computer, so yeah, it's probably doing something a little bit funny, but not a big deal. We'll just go ahead and keep moving. I think I was just accidentally pressing a key. Might put a few other little details in there. Not real important at this point. All right, and I'll create one more just to show that we can make multiple frame medias. And the custom brush can be so much simpler than this. It can just be one splat, and you're done. But we're going to go ahead and make a full-blown animated thing with a bunch of other things going on. So let's make one more. So we'll have 3 frames in this. And I'll just make a simple one this time. All right. Something like that. All right, so what I'm going to do now is go ahead and copy this to the swap image, or I'll just swap. I'll press this button right here, and then I'll put it in the swap image. It's sort of like drawing on the back of the paper. And once I've done that, I'll go to Image and Alpha and copy swap image to selection. And it's as simple as that. That becomes a selection. Since we're working on black and white, I want to reverse that, so we'll go to Selection and Invert Selection, and that's it. All we have to do now is go to Brush and copy selected as brush, and we have that as a shape, as a matte shape. But we might want to make a color version of this later down the road, so we can actually color this if we like to. We might as well go ahead and do that because it doesn't cost anything extra. It's we can switch readily between matte and color mode. So I'll go ahead and color these somehow. I'll probably use some oil colors and whatever, pick a color. Let me see, I'll clear these to a neutral color and clear that, and we'll start painting on that. Alright, so doesn't have to be anything complicated. These are just going to be basically little small brush strokes, and we can do pretty much whatever we want to them, but maybe there's a little blue highlight, they're picking up some color off the sky, that kind of thing. Alright, now that we've added some color to that, I'll go ahead and go to Brush and copy selected as brush. That'll pick up that selection, and we can start painting with it. Go ahead and go back to white background so we can see what we're doing, and that's now something we can paint with. That in itself is fine, but it'd be better with some, if we change the settings a bit, put the random placement. Might change the size down because that's kind of large. And we can start painting with that kind of thing. I might change the step quite a bit, like that. And that's an okay little brush, but it's not that fantastic. So we're going to add more frames to that. Let's go ahead and store that. There's a little button here called Store Brush. And that pops up our stored copy of it. We'll use that later. So let me go ahead and restore this middle brush here, and I'm going to go through the same steps I did before. I'll swap images. I'm going to clear that. That was the old one I had in the swap image. So we now have this one in the swap image. I'm going to go to Image and Alpha and copy swap image to selection. That becomes a selection. I'll go ahead and invert that selection. And I'd like to just mention there are easier ways to do this, but we're going kind of through the long way, just because showing you the best way to get the most control and the most amount of flexibility that we want, that we can get out of this, doing this way. We can talk about some faster ways to do this later, but for now this will do. Just gonna put a little color on these. And I'll go ahead and pick that up as a brush. Copy selected as brush. And that becomes something we can paint with. I'm going to go over here, do Show Film Strip, press Add Frame. And now that's something we can paint with. Alright, and let's do it one more time while we're at it. I'll go ahead and grab that top one we had. I'll swap the images. And I'll go to, let's see, Alpha, copy, swap image to selection. That becomes our selection. I'll invert it. Maybe add some color to it or whatever we want at this point. Not being terribly elaborate with that at this point, but you get the idea. You can paint anything any way you want. Copy selected. And we now have our third frame. I'll do add frame, and we now have 3 frames in our animated brush.